We've got an election coming up in November, and the Centennial Institute, a well-known Colorado conservative group, has declared its opposition to Proposition DD, the proposition that will be on this November's ballot that would legalize sports betting and tax it to fund Colorado's water plan. The Centennial Institute says it believes that the measure will corrupt sports. Shocking. Jon, what do you think?
Sports is already pretty corrupt. I don't know how they can do any more to it. And in terms of helping with the water, I mean, the state already has several different programs that involve a little bit of betting and gambling, and one of them is Great Outdoors Colorado, which has been successful in getting 49% of the tax dollars from the lottery, and they've used that very effectively to build parks and recreation, avenues and venues around the state. Last week or 2 weeks ago, California passed a bill that said that college students now may sell their face, they may sell their names, they may sell their uniforms and numbers and things like that. They have the pay-to-play deal that they passed out there. Now, none of the other states have that. Colorado hasn't mentioned that in relationship to this bill in DD, but to me the bottom line is if that comes in, that's going to change the game entirely. I mean, you already have parlays and you have different ways that people bet on professional sports now, but if this pay-to-play comes to Colorado and to other states, I think everybody's going to be in a pickle.
Well, and of course, DD would not make Colorado the only state to accept sports betting. Natasha, what do you think of this take?
I'll echo that, yes, sports have been corrupted long before this happened. But interestingly, as we look at this, the point of addiction services, yes, gambling can be a very serious addiction for some people, and do we need resources and awareness about that? So I'm going to kind of find some silver lining in this discussion. I'm not sure this sort of single voice raising their hand is going to stop this from going forward, but it is an important discussion. Like, do we have resources in the state for people who might have addiction, betting addiction problems? And as far as the water issues, I mean, we talk about it at the table all the time, from water to transportation to schools. There are so many things in the state that need funding. This is another creative way to come up with that funding.
And of course, Marianne, you were following it in the legislature where the casino towns certainly have pushed this, but they worked very closely to come up with something that would be maybe palatable to Colorado voters, which is the water plan.
Correct. The water plan is in need of really major funding. When it first came out, the price tag on that was $30 billion, more than we need for transportation or some of the other great things, education, those kinds of things. The money that would be raised through Proposition DD is to use a really stupid water pun, a drop in the bucket. At the most, it might come up with maybe somewhere in the $20 million range. The state's obligation on this is supposed to be $100 million a year starting next year. This obviously isn't going to fill that bucket by any means. The other thing that I find interesting is this was a very bipartisan bill when it went through the legislature. John Cook was the sponsor of it in the Senate. And Patrick Neville had helped write it, and of course you had lots of Democrats backing this too. And the Centennial Institute is not shy about showing up at the state capitol when there's something down there they don't like, whether it's the Civil Rights Commission, the sex ed bill that we had in this last legislative session. They are very happy to gin up opposition to things. They never showed up on this one at all. They didn't testify against it. They didn't lobby against it. The fact that they're now coming out 3 days before the ballots go out to voters to argue against this, I just find kind of curious.
David, do you find it curious?
Well, I found it informative to read the Colorado Sun because they had a great article by Brian Eason, which really goes through the economics of this and explains that the amount that's actually going to come out for the water plan, which we agree needs a lot more money, is going to be very small. And when you already have legalized gambling in a state like we do, adding another form of that often just cannibalizes gambling dollars from the already legal things. If it passes, I would hope the legislature will pass something that just limits it to people betting on who's going to win or lose the game, because sort of the next round is people get the gambling in their cell phones, which this would certainly allow for, is to push the addicts for revenue, like bet on play-by-play. Will the team make a first down in the next 3 minutes? Those kinds of things. So instead of just losing or making one bet on one game. You can make lots of bets and lose a lot more money more quickly within a single game.